So from my experience, a couple things that worked, because what we're trying to do is help bridge that gap between sales and marketing know they need to work together, but how can we help them, right? How can we help each other? I'm with Colleen, and in Pharma One, we pushed our managers to be out in the field, not only coaching, but seeing customers, but also marketing people had quotas in terms of number of days they needed to spend in the field. And the other thing that we did was we had rep advisory groups for specific products. So when marketing was developing a sales aid or a campaign, we had 2 or 3 reps, many of them we were across Canada, so they would call in, maybe Zoom in or Skype in those days, but would be part of the process of building any materials. Because what happens is if materials are not built with sales input, sometimes they don't get used. So the advisory groups would be responsible not only for the input, but also helping to sell it to the rest of the team. When we had a sales kickoff meeting, our champions or product champions would be part of that process of introducing the other sales reps to it.
And that makes sense. If you can't ride along with sales, though, and I have mostly a tech background. And so in tech, we've got the customer success team, and they basically take over the accounts. I know that in some industries, the sales owns the entire life cycle of the account. But if you can't get into a ride along in a sales call, you can certainly talk to current customers.
Yes.
And I said conferences. I love that in pharma, they were actually talking to the people who were talking to the customer. And that's what actually sparked me to say, oh, yeah, but if they're current customers, you can ride along with customer success much more easily than you can ride along with sales.
Yeah.
And in that industry, do you create support materials for customer success people or just for the sales people?
I think you should create for both. Like, for example, if you're launching a new product feature, the collateral may be the same or it may be different. There's a reason to sell on it. There might be a reason to upsell on it. There's a different spin there. So a good marketing team does, because especially if you're in SaaS or something like that, it's so much easier to keep a customer than win a customer.
Very good. So Jenn, we've talked about this sales and marketing, and it's been a conversation forever, hasn't it? So we talked about reducing the friction, communication being one of those. And I noticed on one of your LinkedIn posts that you presented the idea, I think I've got this right, where maybe there needs to be one person that both marketing and sales are reporting to. Maybe it's the CMO is in charge of revenues, the CRO is in charge of revenues, or the CEO. So can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because that might be part of reducing the friction here.
No, actually, you even read the comment section, because I think that's where that idea really got hammered out. So I appreciate that. So the premise of the post is that it almost doesn't matter how much bread marketing and sales break together. It almost doesn't matter if they're in lockstep, no ops problems, total communication, everybody knows the customer. The moment the CEO says to one or the other of them, basically, I'm threatening your job, whose fault is this? It dissolves the lockstep. Because the moment you start threatening somebody's livelihood, you've hit a deeper level than sales and marketing alignment will ever hit.
Right. So now we've got the fight or flight response going on when game starts. Okay.
All exactly.
Right. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. In organizations, there's always going to be friction. Depending on how you structure the organization will determine where that friction is going to be. So let me give you 2 examples. I was in an organization where we had dedicated business unit directors or VPs of sales and marketing that were responsible for the whole business unit, versus taking several business units and having dedicated head of sales and dedicated head of marketing. Mm-hmm. So in the second structure, the friction was between sales and marketing. In the one where you had business units and you had a person who was responsible for both, the friction was between business units for resources and for recognition.
But this business unit actually worked.
Yes, I've done that job. And that's a fun job, actually, to do. I guess you're head of sales and you're head of marketing, but both try to get their way with you. But you have an ability to make sure that sales is delivering on what marketing is done because you've ownership.
Especially if you have a go-to-market background. If you have carried a bag, if you have owned a pipeline goal, if you have done this. Now, granted, if you have a sales background, you have to learn the long-term thinking of marketing. If you have a marketing background, you have to learn the grind of sales, right? You have to cross-train. But then it's so different than having that CEO who with no go-to-market background being like, whose fault is this? and they can't hear the explanation versus saying to the go-to-market leader, whose fault is this? And they're like, oh, we have a systems problem here and we have this here and this is how we're fixing it. I mean, very different conversations.
Right. So this is where the CRO and the CMO need to join elbows and sit down with the CEO and share with him or her that there's no one to blame. We're a unified front.
And solving the problem, because of course, what we're talking about is we've missed quota, we've had a few down cycles. It's a unified problem solving front. It's not like, you suck, you didn't work my leads. It's, hey, we noticed this ops problem. Hey, this thing's happening over here. We need to change our persona target. And we're already working together to fix it.